is Gloria Vellicamp, even though it says Gloria Tucker on there. I forgot to update it. So this is a Drupal plugin lesson that's pretty advanced. So if you don't know anything about Drupal's architecture, then you might not understand what I'm talking about. But this is a plugin demo. So we're going to go over what plugins are, and then do a demo on them just to show you what it looks like in the Drupal ecosystem. And then we'll do a review on the overall architecture. Okay, so what plugins are? So a Drupal plugin is an object-oriented component that provides some kind of functionality within a Drupal website. And they're usually discovered by a plugin service that's usually named a plugin.manager. Whatever you're naming your plugin. And they almost always implement the plugin manager interface, but there are a few plugins in Drupal that don't necessarily do that, and the element plugins are one of those. However, they all follow the same kind of format, and their purpose is to reuse functionality over and over again without being redundant. So if you have some kind of piece that keeps replicating itself, that's what plugins are for. And there's plenty of plugins in Drupal. For example, there's blocks, build types, elements, entities, views handlers. Layout Builder uses field blocks on top of the block architecture. And there's plenty more that you'll see if you look into Drupal's backend. Okay, so these are the types of components that are in the plugin system. There's a plugin management, which is a plugin manager, service and class. And then there are 3 different types of discovery for plugins, which are attributes. They used to be annotations, but now they're attributes. And then there's YAML discovery and static discovery. And static discovery is if you already know the subset of plugins that you're trying to discover. So let's say you want to turn all the blocks that you have into something else. And call it a different plugin. That's an example of using static discovery. YAML plugins are usually for the front end. They don't require a whole lot of coding beyond the boilerplate code within the plugin system. And then the creation of plugins are through the plugin manager class, and there's configuration as well, and we'll go over that. So the first section that we're going to talk about is the plugin manager service and class. The common methods used are get definitions, which will get all of your plugin definitions, and then creating an instance of each one of those. And you provide your ID of the plugin and configuration for the plugin. Configuration is defined within each plugin class. Usually YAML plugins don't have configuration, but they can if you set it up that way. And as far as the definitions go, those get defined during the plugin instantiation. So through that create instance method, it will go ahead and list that definition for you when you retrieve it. So most plugins are discovered through PHP attributes. They used to be PHP annotations. So if you see annotations in Drupal somewhere, entity types are one of them. Those will eventually be converted into attributes. And the default plugin manager service and class is usually what gets extended. It provides all of the default plugin functionality that you would want. And you can actually create plugins through Drush. So there are a couple commands to help you with that. Blocks are a perfect example of this. They're the most commonly known about plugin and extended plugin for custom code. And then some are discovered through YAML. Layout plugins are a really good example of this, and they are not just YAML discovery, they're also attribute discovery. So you can define layouts in YAML and attributes. And then you can see the format here for YAML plugins. This right here is what gets customized. So if you have a custom plugin, then you would put that name here, and that gets defined in your default or your plugin manager class that extends the default. Okay, so how to create plugins. They're usually created with the create instance method, and usually some configuration from the database. A lot of this stuff, a lot of plugins use the configuration management system to store some data, and then you retrieve it through that configuration for your plugin instantiation. So blocks are a great example of this. They're both entities and block plugins. So configuration blocks are created in the configuration management system, and then there are blocks that use that for instantiation of the actual plugin. So fields are a great example of this with configuration management and content management. They use both architectures. So there's data for fields, like for the field widgets, field types, and the field types, I guess is what I'm talking about here, where the configuration is stored, and then the actual field content is used within the plugins. And so I guess an example is with entity blocks. You can get the actual plugin instance because they're different classes than the entities themselves. So they're optionally configurable. You don't have to have any configuration, but if you want to, most often the configurable plugin interface up here is what you would extend or implement. And you can also add forms, configurable forms. Again, blocks are a perfect example of this, that they're a plugin form and a plugin with forms, which is sort of confusing, but you can have all of those implemented if you'd like. Okay. So this is for the plugin demo. I'm not sure if you can still clone this though, because it's been a minute. Sorry, my name changed, and I changed a bunch of stuff. But if you would like, you can clone this plugin demo that I've set up. What are you messing with over there, youngin'? Okay, hopefully you don't pull everything out. Okay, so if you'd like to clone this, you can. If not, you can just follow along. This just shows you how to set it up with Lando. And I will show you a demo I've set up. Alright, so I'm going to go over it just like I did with the introduction. So this is, okay, that needs to be bigger because I can't see it. Okay, so this is an example of a frame plugin that extends the default plugin manager class. And as you can see, you really don't have to do much at all with the manager class. You just have to extend it. That's the first part. And these right here are important. So what this says is that plugins will be found at this namespace. With blocks, it has block where frame is. And then for that plugin interface, it'll extend it, or it will implement this interface. This is how it also knows how to discover it. And this is the attribute class that gets used for definitions. So before I move on from the plugin manager, I also want you to see how it is defined. So these get defined through a plugin manager service in your services.yaml under your module, and some kind of name that you use right there for your plugin manager. So it will be unique to the plugin that you're defining. And then this just points to the class, and it has this parent indicator right here that tells it that the default plugin manager is a parent service. So all of the arguments that get defined with the default plugin manager will get passed down to this service, so you don't have to put in your arguments right here. Yes?
You said that it implements the plugin interface, but then you said the elements do not. So it doesn't have to implement the plugin interface, or how does that work?
No. So whatever you define, let me pull the plugin manager service back up. So whatever you define right here is what your plugin has to implement, and that can be any class at all.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, you don't have to.
So you can have custom interfaces for a plugin if you wanted to, but
yes.
Nobody would know how to use it unless they read the docs.
Right, yeah, and that's what the interface is for, right?
Right.
So yeah, you get to sort of have free reign on whatever you want your plugin to do and be. So let's see what's next. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and show y'all the frame attribute, and I love that Drupal swapped to PHP attributes because they're so much easier to define and debug. With annotations, they're like really hard if y'all ever had to deal with annotations. So this just tells it that it's an attribute class, and as you can see, it uses the PHP attributes, and each one of these are the properties that your plugin will have, and you can define extra properties here. But I just use the default just to make it simple. Next thing we're going to look at is the plugin interface. So as you can see, it implements the plugin inspection interface, which is normally how plugins get discovered, and it gives you these two methods, get plugin ID and get plugin definition. So it will be easy to retrieve